Thank you for taking the time to watch this video about prescribed burn associations and the benefits that they bring to landowners and habitat in Missouri. My name is Corey Gregg. I'm a private lands conservationist with Missouri Department of Conservation. And we also have Wes Buchheit with Pheasants Forever, and he's also a member of the Prescribed Burn Association at the Foothills. And we have Paul Breitenstein as well, who is the vice president with the Foothills PBA. So this video was designed to inform people that have interest in prescribed fire about the functions, what benefits the PBAs bring, special trainings that are made available, and also how to get one started. So Wes Buchheit's going to be the main presenter, and after he gets done, we'll have a brief question and answer session with both Wes and Paul. And then lastly, we're going to review some of the steps that it takes to get involved with a PBA and to get a PBA started. So I hope you find this presentation informative and valuable, and thanks again for joining us. Now I'll hand it over to Wes.
Thank you, Corey. Appreciate you tuning in today. Again, my name is Wes Buchheit. I am the Prescribed Fire Coordinating Biologist for Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever in Missouri. I also serve on the Missouri Prescribed Fire Council, and as Corey mentioned, I'm a member of the Foothills PBA. So the overall goal of my position with Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever is to increase the capacity of prescribed fire in Missouri, and specifically on private land. So I'm here, Corey, Paul, and likely you, because we have a collective passion for improving our native plant communities and the wildlife that they support, and meeting land management goals on your property or just on the local landscape for the benefit of our natural resources. Missouri is 93% privately owned. As you can see on the map, the blue is representative of publicly owned land, and the white is private land ownership. So if we're going to have a positive impact on these resources, our best chance is to work together for improvements on private land. Fire caused by lightning and Native Americans played a key role in shaping our plant communities, from grasslands to savannas, woodlands, glades, and more. It's what kept our prairies and glades relatively free of trees and abundant in grasses and wildflowers. It shaped our savannas and woodlands to be more oak and shortleaf pine dominated, as those species tolerate fire, and fire actually stimulates germination for the second generation. Fire can set back target plants. It can be used to combat invasive species. It recycles nutrients and stimulates plant response. So over the past 80 years or more, fire has been excluded from our landscape, but for just causes to protect persons and property, but at the cost of these plant communities. They have been degraded over time. We've seen a shift from fire adapted plants to fire intolerant ones. So prescribed fire is a tool that mimics the natural process, but it's conducted under prescribed conditions. It's one of the most efficient and cost-effective management tools we have available. So you may be tuning in because you've learned about prescribed fire in the past, or perhaps even attended a training or two, but have faced limitations on getting prescribed fire on your property or simply gaining experience. Well, that's true for many folks. Prescribed fire is a valuable tool, but it presents hurdles in applying it, such as the lack of knowledge and experience, training, proper equipment, and then just simply people available to help out on a given day on the fire line. So prescribed burn associations, or PBAs, are a mechanism to overcome these hurdles. PBA membership will comprise of varying levels of age and experience, and that's the entire point. It's to provide these opportunities for experience and for mentorship. I've seen husbands and wives, children and grandchildren, all holding a rake or a drip torch, or driving the UTV with the water unit or the water cooler on the fire line, pitching in where they feel comfortable or where they'd like to gain more hands-on experience, and then improving habitat. In Missouri, we have 6 PBAs, with the Mark Twain and Ozark forming in 2015, and the Mid-Mo PBA as recently as this past October. As you can see at the bottom, there's a link to the Missouri Prescribed Fire Council website, And it also shows the locations of these PBAs and then contact information if you'd like to reach out to those in your local area. It's impressive to see the impact that these PBAs have made and continue to make on the local landscape. As you can see in this chart here, it shows the acres impacted by year for each PBA. So, as Corey mentioned, MDC staff, Well Forever biologists, Missouri Prescribed Fire Council, and other conservation organizations and agencies, we're here to provide assistance to help stand up a PBA, equip them with the proper tools, find those funding sources, and provide guidance and technical support, all to assist this community-led group to be a successful PBA with longevity. So now we're going to talk more about how a PBA can function to meet your objectives. And the structure may be as formal or informal as a group agrees upon. All of these things that I'm going to be sharing is what most PBAs use in their structure, but it's really up to each individual PBA to decide how they want to operate. So a minimum of one PBA meeting per year. Most meet twice. Membership consists of dues, which are nominal $25 per year. Having once completed a recognized training as decided by the PBA, and that's to have a foundational knowledge for members to build their fire experience upon before they take it to their own property. And then it's participating on one or two other PBA member burns so that it facilitates this neighbor helping neighbor approach to completing prescribed fire. PBA geography can be defined or as undefined as the group decides. The Ozark PBA, for instance, works within a 50-mile radius of Van Buren, the middle of Carter County there. And you can see on the map here, the Foothills PBA works, identified a core interest between Perry and Bollinger counties, the highlighted counties there. And they decided that working within Perry, Bollinger, and adjacent counties. And so they really let the distance that members are willing to travel to assist on other burns dictate the geography. So we found that it's typically an hour in one direction. So the next part of this is forming a PBA. It's the first part is identifying community leadership for that landowner-led or community-led group. And we'll touch more on that in the next slide. The second step is adopting a set of bylaws, and that might sound a little daunting to some, but it's a set of procedures in which the PBA is going to operate so that it ensures that each member's treated fairly. And all the other PBAs in Missouri operate with a set of bylaws, so those documents are in place, and there's no sense in recreating the wheel. Those examples are available to take and adapt them for whatever the PBA, how the PBA would like to function. The next step is registering with the state as a legal entity. They've been going as nonprofit organizations. And then there's the option to file with the IRS as tax-exempt 501c3. That can have benefits whenever applying for grants and other funding opportunities. The next step is opening a bank account and then acquiring equipment. So it's important to note that this formation step does take investment and dedication and time from the volunteers, from the community to get it going. But it's important to remember that just like fire breaks, where if you're putting in a fire break in the woodland, you've got to do a little bit of work of cutting trees and moving that material and getting out of the way. But once you got that fire break in place, once you have the PBA in place, it doesn't take much to maintain it as years go on, just simply getting out that backpack blower and removing that leaf litter. So I mentioned community leadership. This is often in the form of officers or board of directors, such as president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and then other board members. So looking at 5 to 7 folks that are willing to work together to provide lift, to steer the PBA, to communicate with the group so that it's not such a heavy lift for 1 or 2 individuals. So working together is the key there to be a successful group. I think it's important to note that it doesn't take someone with extensive fire experience to serve on one of these roles. It really is just dependent upon someone that has an interest and passion for improving our resources and also helping out others within their community. So once the group is formed, then look at acquiring equipment. The PBAs in Missouri, most of them have an enclosed trailer, such as the one pictured here. And they are stocking that with drip torches, backpack blowers, brakes, flappers, council rakes, other hand tools, two-way radios, Kestrel weather units, fuel cans, water units. Some will have gas-powered skid sprayers and also have some electric, 12-volt sprayers to go on the back of UTVs and ATVs. I think it's important to note that it seems like those gas-powered skid sprayers are a little cumbersome and don't get used as often. And we found that those electric ones with 5 gallons per minute output have been really useful in prescribed fire operations. But also within the trailer are bladder bags, road signs, hard hats, safety glasses, first aid kits, and more, all to ensure that we're able to conduct burns safely and responsibly. One other thing that PBAs present are training opportunities. So whether that is interpreting prescribed fire weather, burn plan writing, or maybe it's just constructing fire breaks, or in this instance, this is a training where we were talking about how to reduce the chance of fire getting outside the burn unit, and then also how to safely and properly address fire that may get outside the unit. It's a very rare occurrence, but it can and will happen. So this came up from within the Foothills PBA. We were talking about it, wanted to learn more. So we put on this training where we're able to set up a safe location. We actually did some prescribed burns around this grassland to remove adjacent fuels. And then we worked in teams to put fire within this field with low grass fuels and let that grow to about the size of a pickup truck. And then have the one person that was designated already radio it in to the burn boss of that mock prescribed burn, and then call for the resources that they need. And then that team worked in tandem to safely suppress that fire and extinguish it. So at the end of the day, the group that participated were able to share how they felt more competent in handling those stressful situations if they would occur on a future prescribed burn. So PBAs are a great way to have a collective voice in asking for certain training or learning opportunities. So once the PBA is formed, the typical process to burn is submitting a burn plan to the board and having that project added to the list. The current PBAs in Missouri do have in their bylaws that PBA burns must be conducted in accordance to a written burn plan. And so those burn plans get added to that list and worked on first come, first served basis or by weather conditions. So let's say that Dan has a woodland burn unit that's at the top of the list, but it rained. And Jane has a grassland unit, second on the list. So we can work and check with Dan and talk with Jan and be able to say, hey, let's work and get to that grassland burn because that woodland needs some extra drying days. And so we'll get that grassland one done, and then we'll come back to the woodland burn, the next available burn window. We have found that it's important to have the fire breaks inspected by someone else within the PBA or a technical service provider prior to the day of the burn. That way, when everybody gets there to the property, to the project, we're ready to burn, and we have fire breaks that are in good condition, as opposed to having to touch up fire breaks or potentially even constructing those. So we're wanting to be efficient with our time. So it's that landowner, that member's responsibility to be monitoring the weather and relating that to their burn unit. And then it's reserving and checking out the equipment from the PBA. And that member is sending out notification to the membership and requesting a reply if folks are able to help. So groups are communicating through either like mass email, group text, a Facebook group, a GroupMe app, or even a phone chain where members have assigned people who they need to contact to get that message out. So an example might be, hey, this is Wes. I've got a 15-acre grassland unit. Friday's looking good. I'm wanting to burn. It's looking good according to my burn plan. I need an additional backpack blower and 2 additional drip torches and 4 people according to my burn plan, and then seeing who responds. And so folks that are able, they'll reply back, and we can figure out what that assistance looks like. But if you're out there receiving that message and, man, I got to work that day, or the kids have a ball game, or we got church that night, I'm not going to be able to make it. That's okay. That's the whole point of this PBA, is that if we're sending out this message to 30, 50, 100 people, chances are that we'll be able to get those resources, equipment, and people to a project whenever the weather aligns, because we have such a large pool of people to hopefully receive some assistance from. So the day of the burn, the landowner or that member makes sure they have adequate resources and people and equipment on hand according to the plan. Conduct a crew briefing, and the landowner initiates the fire, as the landowner generally holds liability as they receive the benefits from that prescribed fire. And the PBA does not conduct a burn. It provides assistance through equipment and personnel. So we find that with our burn trainings and prescribed burn workshops, folks will attend, but there is some hesitancy to apply that tool to their own property. And folks are often in need of some guidance or confidence to conduct a burn. And so with these PBAs, our goal is to foster this skill through training and hands-on experience. Every burn that someone can participate on is another opportunity to gain hands-on experience and keep building that skill set. With PBAs, we have the opportunity for that one-on-one mentorship, talking with each other on the fire line about what we're seeing, how the fire is behaving, and having that communication with each other for each to learn more. And then we also have folks that just like to get together, enjoy what we're doing, a shared interest in improving habitat and helping each other out. So at the end of the burn, we're checking in equipment, whether that's back to the original location, or perhaps the next person on the burn list is there at the burn. They might take the equipment with them for their burn the next day or a couple of days later. So after a successful burn or multiple burns, some people will peel off and head home to the family, or some will stick around to enjoy a bite to eat and a beverage, sharing the smell of smoke and soot on their boots, knowing that they had a positive impact on the local landscape. PBAs are a great way to get to know other folks that are like-minded, have the same interest and dedication and passion for our natural resources. And we also are building our prescribed fire culture within our local communities and within the state. So a PBA can have that impact on the local landscape, and it builds that camaraderie within our communities. So it's because of people pictured here, and potentially because of you, that we can officially improve our natural resources that we hold dear. So I want to thank you for joining today, and would love to hear from you if you have an interest in PBAs, or connecting with one, or pursuing the opportunity to start one in your area. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wes. I appreciate all that valuable information. It's a great review over PBAs and how they function, so I appreciate that. We're going to move on to the question and answer, and hopefully you can see my screen now.
Yes.
All right, so these are some common questions that people have expressed in the past during some of our interest meetings. And so we've got Paul and Wes here, both from the Foothills, that's going to basically answer these questions based on their experience. And so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Paul, can you hear me all right?
I hear you just fine, Gordon.
All right, good deal. Okay, so the first question we've got is, how large of an area does the PBA service?
The FPBA, we are a 2-county, Bollinger and Perry County but outreach, kind of an epicenter of those two counties. So we take in some landowners from Madison County, St. Francis County. So the board and general membership has decided, on a kind of a case by case situation of landowners wanting to join the FPBA and how far members are willing to travel to assist them with those burns.
Yeah, and we even have we have members that live in the St. Louis area, so an hour plus away, that have property here. So absentee landowners that able to help out when able. And then we also have some of those folks that serve as board members too. So the opportunity exists for folks that just really want to contribute to the effort.
All right. Thank you, guys. Second question is, how many burns or acres do you guys accomplish each year in your PBA?
In 2022, we had 14 burns and accomplished 116 acres impacted by prescribed fire. So it's an 8-acre average per year, and that seems to increase year after year as more folks get familiar with the FPBA or PBAs in general, and get their properties prepped to put fire on the ground.
You feel that that's kind of been an average since you guys got started? Just kind of a extra question.
Well, actually, we've only been at it for 2 years, actually coming up on 2 years in January. So maybe a little skewed in the percentages, but yeah, I think that's been about the average year to year, the 2 years.
So, yeah, I think one of the ways that fire happens is just folks getting their burn units prepped, getting their fire breaks in place. So that's one of the limiting factors is not necessarily weather, or we haven't had issues with conflicting projects on one day. It's just been as folks are able to get their burn units prepped. So our burn unit sizes, as Paul mentioned, kind of average at around 8 acres. That's kind of just what we have in this part of the state with land ownership, a little bit smaller parcels, and so then smaller burn units. Other PBAs, what we've seen is if there's larger land ownership, they have a little bit bigger units, and so they're increasing the acres and having that impact. So it's really just dependent on the local landscape, but 14 burns this past year is some good numbers that I feel that we're doing.
Yeah, good, awesome. Thanks for that addition. Next question. What is the biggest advantage, in your opinion, of the PBA?
Well, I'll field that one. All of us every day have two challenges. It's time and resources. You either have the time or you don't have the resources, or vice versa. So the PBAs add that depth, especially on the human resources, in the fact that you have more people probably available, that when the timing comes around, and when I mean timing, it's weather dependent. So when those windows are smaller, you have more potential when you have the human resource factor available and ready to help. So and then another resource to consider is equipment. I wouldn't say it's absolutely necessary for a prospective PBA farming have to have a trailer full of equipment. Certainly helps, but like I said, it's not a necessity, as I think most landowners are and have been engaged for themselves in varying degrees, have some equipment already themselves. So it's just another dimension, and more equipment that you have, possibility of conducting maybe multiple burns at the same time, same day.
Wes, do you have any additions on that?
Oh, Paul hit it on the head. People, I think that's one of the biggest advantages, as Paul mentioned, just a pool of folks that may be available whenever the weather conditions align.
Yeah, I think sharing those experiences too, and passing that torch down, no pun intended necessarily, but really, I think that's a lot of opportunity there for the future. So, okay, thank you guys. So what are some of the hurdles that you've encountered when forming and maintaining the PBA? I know you guys are a little bit young yet, but just share what experience you've got so far.
Well, I'll be redundant and say time and resources again when we mention, the human component, being able to keep those individuals engaged and encouraged and mentored. It's the same dilemma, I think, with every organization. Is you have a core group of people that consistently show up, and others, and we all have lives, and I would say, Wes, wouldn't you, about 50-50 of our members are retired and the other are still gainfully employed. So there's that demographics, and we understand, but it's an imperative, and we try to repeat that we want, number one, to get habitat impacted in a positive way using fire, and that requires everybody doing their part. So yeah, that can be a challenge, keeping those things up, keeping people engaged, and of course communications is another pivotal obstacle that I think we all are challenged with in our daily lives, and just being able to keep good information flowing so that everybody has pertinent, timely information, especially when weather is looking right and somebody pushing out information to the whole group. Hey, here's the windows for you folks that have some units ready to burn. Here's some good opportunities. So that's just another example of keeping people engaged through good communications.
Okay. All right. So how long does it take basically from the forming of a PBA to actually getting fire on the ground?
Well, in our case, it was just a matter of a month, I think, month or two, really. I think officially we had gotten started in January, and we were putting fire on the ground February and March. And, that's due to, there was a group of us that were already helping each other before, farming the FPBA, and through Wes and his contacts with QFPF in the PLC in this area. So, we knew some folks that were engaged in whatever degree of burning prior to already. So it didn't take us long to get fire on the ground.
Nice.
Yeah,
Wes, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to share with the Foothills PBA. We also able to seek funds from the U.S. Forest Service through MDC, and with that grant application, we were able to use in-kind match. So acres impacted, hours volunteered, mileage to and from the burn units as match in that grant. So there was some incentive as well to get things going. But what we've seen from other PBAs is anywhere from that 1, 2 to 3 to 6 months of from the initial interest meeting and then actually getting fire on the ground is kind of what we've been seeing.
I'm sure there's different variables that play into that too, from leadership to equipment to training and stuff like that too. So it may vary a little bit, but okay, sounds good. All right, so what type of funding, you kind of mentioned a little bit there, Wes, but what type of funding sources did you guys use to acquire some equipment? And further, where did you get your trailer, and does PBA actually own and insure the equipment that you guys have?
Go ahead, Wes.
Yeah, so I mentioned with the foothills, it was funding assistance from MDC, Forest Service, and Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. Other PBAs have been supported by Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever chapters, National Wild Turkey Federation, their Super Fund grant, and then MDC has been supportive as well. So looking for just collaborative approaches from different conservation organizations and agencies that want to support it. And then also here recently, the Midmo PBA has been working with local fire departments of used equipment that they're looking to replace that's still in good operating order or may just need a few replacement parts, receiving those donations since they are a nonprofit and 501c3 organization. It kind of opens up another avenue there. For the Foothills PBA, the trailer was purchased by Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. And then the PBA actually made a donation to Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever for that assistance, and a thank you. And then, but the PBA trailer is licensed under Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever, and then also has an insurance policy on it that the PBA just pays PFQF on an annual basis.
Okay. So there's some avenues, I guess, to work through to get this equipment, not only the ownership, but also the insurance. So definitely something to discuss at a later time. Okay.
Yep.
So kind of on that insurance note, does the PBA carry liability insurance? Or for actually doing the burning?
No, the PBA does not carry liability insurance for the prescribed burn. It's upon that landowner, that member, to check with their insurance provider to check their policy and coverage for that. Again, the PBA provides assistance through education, training, equipment, and people available to help.
Gotcha. All right. So what are some reasons for using prescribed fire on the landscape? And we don't need to get too far in the weeds on this one because we could probably talk all day on it, but just give us some brief overviews on that.
Well, Wes, I'll go or start with that one. Is just first, if you're going to put fire on the ground, doing it safely and having everything in place. And then another key component is patience thereafter. I think maybe a lot of initial landowners engaging in prescribed fire, they're thinking the next growing season there's going to be this vast change to the landscape. It's underway, and the fire provided that. So in guidance with your burn plan, what are your objectives? And again, after that is being patient. It may take 2, 3, even 4 growing seasons or years of watching that landscape as it transitions back to a more healthy community. So once the landowner starts seeing that, is patient and starts looking for it, you know, they really get excited then. For some, I think, you know, the fire itself is exciting, or exciting enough, but you know, it's really for me at least, you know, when I started years ago, um, again, getting into it and watching year after year of that transformation, it was like, this is just so important. And if you want to compare that to, let's say, a mechanical application of strictly TSI or herbicide application, it is so much more cost effective and much more efficient tool than either one of them. Those all have their places, but you know, in my mind, fire is, you know, should be the first consideration that a landowner engages in.
Yeah, there's just
Go ahead.
there's just, you know, that unique response from fire that you don't get from other management tools. And as Paul mentioned, just cost effective. You know, you can improve numerous acres with as not as much input as some of those other you know, management tools. But with the PBA membership, we have folks that you know, are managing their open land, their grasslands, and then also we have some a cattleman that is managing native forage with prescribed fire. And then we also have folks within the membership that have woodlands and glades and using it to manage for wildlife and for forestry production. So like Paul said, it's all about what are your objectives and using the tool appropriately to work towards those objectives.
And if I may add to that, is, you know, there's a lot of folks that are very apprehensive about fire, not just because they're afraid of fire, but they think it does a lot of damage, you know, insect mortality, reptiles, amphibian, you know, and I'm not discounting that, but if something isn't done, those communities decline anyway. And, you know, the old adage of you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. And if you engage in fire and the timing is right, you're going to see in those subsequent years, again, more of a proliferation of all those species than prior to doing a prescribed burn.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I like you bringing in the point too, Wes, on, you know, producers using this to manage their forage too. That's becoming more and more popular, and I think it's going to continue to grow. So those are all great points, guys. And there's definitely way more we could talk about on that. But I think that on a case-by-case basis with an MDC biologist or another biologist would be even more appropriate for those that are listening in. So we'll, for the sake of time, move on. Can a landowner pay the PBA to conduct a burn on their property?
Actually, we have, but we required that individual or two to become a member, and kind of expecting that they were kind of in a bind, in a situation where they were behind on contract, and to accommodate that, and why we as the FPBA and the board decided to help that individual out was it would be loss of habitat that could be impacted by fire, because that individual would have lost the contract, didn't have anybody interested other than us, and so we decided that for the good of the land and helping just another person out, and hopefully they would maybe in the future engage more in our FPBA. So yes, long way around that. Yes, we don't want to make it a habit, I guess, because we do have members who pay their dues every year, and we don't want to overburden membership with others that are just, wanting that one-time burn. So it would become an issue for any PBA and the board and general membership. Do they want to do it a case-by-case basis? So again, we have and don't plan on making it a business practice. We'll say that.
I think it's important to clarify that, the PBAs are not a for-hire business, as a non-organization. In that specific scenario, it was, the landowner becoming a member of the PBA, and then the PBA assisted with the burn, and then that landowner, made a donation to the PBA, or as a thank you for that, assistance from the group.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's good clarification going forward. All right. So how can I get fire training so I can participate in the PBA? And I am going to be hitting on this here in a little bit. So you may just talk about maybe some local fire training or something, but I'll touch on the NBC fire training here in a little bit.
I'll let you handle that one, Wes.
Yeah, sounds good. Each burn that someone can get out on is a training in and of itself, just because of the others that are on the fire line with them to provide that mentorship, and each burn is a learning opportunity. But it mentioned earlier in the presentation, we've put on specific training events for the PBA, and then with the opportunity to put on other ones as, PBAs have that collective voice asking for those learning opportunities. So myself and other folks with the Prescribed Fire Council and other conservation partners can either host those, or at least we can help find those appropriate instructors to provide that training to PBAs individually, or potentially PBAs collectively within Missouri.
All right. Good. All right, for the next question, what's the best form of communication that you guys have found for advertising for burn needs and times, and who's in charge of that? And then also, how do you guys prioritize the order of the burns that get completed?
Well, we've chosen 3 avenues of communication: email, text, and a GroupMe app. Because our members, varying degrees, again, of understanding those technologies. An example, we had a couple of members who had no email address. One of them does not even have a cell phone. So trying to keep everybody as engaged. You just can't put your finger on one aspect and say this is the way we're going to communicate. Who puts that out? I think I alluded to, there's a couple of us that put out weather information, windows of opportunity weather-wise, and send that out through those communication venues. But by and large, it's up to the landowner if they're ready and they've met all those obligations, burn plans, fire breaks well established, to make that request. And they would use those venues as well. An example would be on January 10th, have a grassland burn. I'm needing 5 additional people, so forth and so on. So yeah, it's up to the responsibility of the landowner to make that request.
In the second part of that question, how do you prioritize order in which burns get completed? Talked about that in the presentation. So first come, first served basis, or it might just be, who has their fire breaks ready and has everything in place to take advantage of the weather window that's approaching. And so it's just having that conversation with the group and like Paul said, getting that information out there.
All right. I'm sure you guys have in your leadership roles, like secretaries, president, vice president, and one of those people probably are the ones that are communicating back and forth and make those decisions and then let the group know, I would assume.
Correct. And we also created a order of work committee so that as burn plans are completed and then submitted for consideration, board of directors as well as that order of work committee sees those burn plans so that when a landowner makes that request to burn on a certain day, we all have, a copy of those burn plans. We all can review them just to make sure, or if somebody makes a request and they don't have, completed to whatever degree, well, no, we cannot accommodate that as an FPBA, as the FPBA. Yeah.
All right. So on the note of burn plans, can a landowner write their own burn plan?
Wes?
So if the project is tied to USDA cost share or MDC cost share or potentially other, government cost share, then there are stipulations that those burn plans for those projects must be written by a technical service provider on either an NRCS or MDC burn plan template. And so, but other burns that are not tied to any sort of cost share program, those can be written by the landowner or again a technical service provider. And then with the PBA structure, those burn plans are being submitted to the board, and the board will provide a review, checking the technical adequacy of those plans. So not everybody's going to feel comfortable writing a burn plan, and that's okay. That may be another training opportunity, as discussed earlier, of maybe it's a burn plan writing and mapping training, and providing the PBA with those resources and tools to be able to write those burn plans. And I always found that having that plan while you're out there going around your burn unit is helpful to make notes on the map and on those boxes of how will you actually process that burn, and more contextualize that process, and it helps in the preparation of that unit.
Good point. Definitely. That's neat that, there's that opportunity to learn how to write a burn plan, and we've got those templates to kind of go off of, and I think landowners know their property the best. So it's a good learning opportunity for sure. All right, you guys have kind of touched on this one a little bit, so it could be a fairly short answer, but who does inspect the fire breaks for you guys before the burn day?
I have gone out prior to and at the request of a landowner to look over their prospective unit and have advised, how to put in a proper line. I don't know that we've ever had anybody go out day before. At least I haven't, and I've only had one situation where folks showed up to do a burn and the lines were not adequate. So we were, I guess, fortunate in one aspect that it's only occurred once. And I think Wes has been out and looked at fire breaks before. So, yeah, preferably, in advance and prior to the day of the burn so that folks don't show up and then have to turn around and go home, especially the distance. Some of those individuals come to help.
Yeah, so as Paul mentioned, an order of work committee earlier that the Foothills PBA has, it could be individuals there or someone from the board or a technical service provider, such as a Quail Forever biologist or MDC staff, if they're available and in communication with the PBA, could provide that inspection. Just like Paul said, to make sure we're efficient with our time.
Yep. No, I think that's super important. All right. So the last question here is, what does the current PBA membership look like as far as the numbers and general demographics?
I think I alluded to that previously. About, I would say, half and half are retired. Quite a few are absentee landowners. In one shape or form, again, as far away as St. Louis, and others living maybe a little farther east, Cape Girardeau area. But a good balance, in we have quite a few professional folks, pilot, a retired veterinarian, so forth. So engaging, with their expertise and knowledge, as well as anything and everything in between, as far as people go.
I believe the Foothills PBA, we have 36 paid members at this time, and other PBAs in Missouri are comparable with a range of, I think, around 20 to 40, 50 members within those groups.
It's a good group of people to draw from for sure. When you're talking only needing 5 or 6 for getting a burn on the ground. So definitely a valuable resource. So I want to thank you guys for sharing your valuable insight and your experience with us. Definitely going to shine some light on some of these common questions that people have had in the past, and hopefully people listening in find the value in it as well. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to, there we go. So given all that, where do we go from here? So generally, after having an interest meeting, a PBA area geography will have a formation meeting after that, and basically kind of go over lining out the mission, the objectives, and function of that group. Each one is unique in itself, and so those objectives and missions and functions are going to be just a little bit different based on that geography and what the landscape and all other types of factors. So super important to have those formation meetings to really hash that stuff out with those people that are interested. Also establishing that geography that that PBA would function under and serve. So that's definitely important, whether it be a radius or whether it be by counties. And then a name for that PBA. A lot of times it's based on the geography where it's located, but it could be something fun as well for that particular area. Also in that formation meeting, trying to find some of those leadership roles or establish those leadership roles. And usually they serve for a 1 or 2 year term. And I'm sure there's been people that have continued on beyond that term or re-volunteered for those roles. But also, this isn't necessarily something that has to be voted on. It's more voluntary, but it just kind of depends on what the situation is and how many people are interested in that role. But getting that leadership established so that that PBA can move forward and start working through its bylaws and getting organized and starting to find equipment So those are all different types of things that occur in that formation meeting. So training availability, MDC offers a training, and it's a two-part training. Basically, the first part of that is an online training, and you can see the website there, and it does cost $25 to go through the training, but I think it's definitely worth that investment. And on that website, I'll just make note that it is under our Hunter Ed platform. It's the same website that we use for our Hunter Ed. So whenever you go to that website, and I'll show you here in just a few minutes, it is a little confusing because it looks like you're getting ready to take Hunter Ed, but I assure you that it'll say prescribed burning on there and you'll know you're in the right spot. And I believe you have about 90 days to get that coursework done. And then the second part of that is attending a field day. And that field day is meant to review over burn plans, look at equipment, and hopefully actually take part in a prescribed burn or watch a prescribed burn take place. And that, again, really is valuable in ensuring some confidence in people that are definitely hesitant to get started, and just show them that when you've got all your parameters in place, the weather, your fire breaks, how easy of a management tool it can be to utilize. So I'll show you all that online real quick here in just a few minutes. Other resources that are really helpful for those that are interested in prescribed burning, you can go to the Missouri Prescribed Fire Council, their website, and I'll give you a quick overview of that. Let's see if I can transition over there. Okay, so can you see that okay, Wes?
Yes.
Okay, so here's just a quick view of the homepage for the prescribed burn course online. So you can see it looks like you're getting ready to take Hunter Ed, but with the Missouri Prescribed Burn course online, you get started. Basically, you'll have to make an account and you just go from there. It's pretty easy to go through. From there, you'll want to attend a field day, and how you sign up and find a field day is you'll actually go to our homepage. If I can get there. Well, you go to our homepage, and up here you'll see events. You just go to events and type in prescribed burn, that, apply, and you'll see all the different prescribed burn workshops, field days that are currently taking place. So it's fairly easy to get in there. You click on one of them and get registered for it. The last website I was going to show you real quick is the Missouri Prescribed Fire Council website. And there's a lot of cool resources on here. You can go in there and find out what their mission, and find out, their committee, see their members. You can, again, see where the burn associations are located. There's some frequently asked questions, and also the resources for the PBAs and connections and contacts there. Calendar has a lot of information, and then resources as well. You can log your burn, which is really a neat tool where you just go in here and enter all the data in from your burn, and they keep track of that. You submit it, and that really shows how much good stuff is going on the landscape across the state. There's also contractors that you can get a hold of that actually help with prescribed burning. There's weather information, again, all kinds of good information there. So just wanted to show you and walk you through that real quick. Here. Okay, so with all that information, if you're interested in getting joining a PBA, or maybe even initiating the talk about a PBA, here's a quick view again of where the PBAs are located in the state, so those orange stars are the ones that are already established, and then those blue stars are actually PBAs that are kind of in the progress, the beginning stages of forming. They're not official yet, but they're getting close. So you can see that PBAs are definitely becoming more and more popular throughout the state, and more landowners are going to be able to take advantage of these in future years. So one way that we get these things started is basically landowners showing interest by contacting either their NDC staff, local conservation staff, or other biologists in the state. So to find out how to find your private land contact for MDC, again, you'll want to go back to our website and sorry, let me find it. There we go. All right, at the top right-hand corner, there's contact and engage. And you come down here and basically find your particular county. And it brings up your local contacts. So your private land assistants, forester, private land conservationist, and fisheries biologist are all going to be labeled there. So your forester and private lands conservationists are going to be your main contacts to show your interest and find out if there's a PBA that's currently serving your area, and just get in touch with them. Or if you're wanting to do any type of habitat management, definitely contact them and set up an appointment with them. Also, Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever have biologists throughout the state too. So if you go to their website or just do a quick Google search for Pheasants Forever, find a biologist, it brings up this screen here, and you just type in your zip code and a radius, and it brings up all those biologists that are within that radius of you. So they're definitely a great resource, and that you should take advantage of. And last but definitely not least, National Deer Association also has some biologists that serve private landowners. So they've got a couple here. Carlin serves the north half of the state, and Shane has the south half of the state. There's their contact information if you're interested in contacting them. And with that, I'd like to again thank you guys for joining us, and I hope you learned a lot about PBAs and how they function and how they can work for you. And if you have any follow-up questions, definitely get a hold of your local PLC, forester, or Quail Forever biologist. So hope to see you or hear from you soon. And with that, I think we're done. Thank you guys for joining in.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you. Thank you all.